If you want to score high on the IELTS test, then the speaking section is one of the parts you'll be most concerned about. Many students don't know what vocabulary to use and how to answer questions to get a high score. Some even start making lists of words they might use on test day, but have no idea how to incorporate them naturally into their answers. So in today's video, we'll discuss 20 idioms and phrases that will come in handy on IELTS speaking and do a full speaking test so you can see how they can be used in context. For extra practice, try answering the questions yourself first, using the new idioms or phrases. Share your answers in the comments section. To get our PDF of 100 academic words for the IELTS test, click on the link below. Let's get started. The first idiom on our list is a mixed bag. A mixed bag means a situation that involves a variety of things, especially good things and bad things. It's like having a bag with different kinds of things in it. Some you might like and some you might not. For example, if a movie has both funny and sad parts, you could say it's a mixed bag of emotions, because it has different kinds of moments. Let's look at a prompt that is similar to the one on the cue card in the second part of the speaking section. The prompt says, describe a memorable holiday. Now we're going to look at how you can use the idiom, a mixed bag, in your answer to this prompt. Please note that the answer I'll give now is not a sample answer. It's too short to be one and doesn't go into enough detail. The main aim of this answer is to illustrate how the idiom is used in the context. The same will apply to the other idioms we will discuss today. Last year, my family and I went to Alaska. The holiday was a mixed bag. While the weather was unpredictable and we faced a few travel hiccups, the time spent with family and the beautiful scenery made it unforgettable. Of course, looking at just one example is not enough to be able to use this idiom in your speech in a natural way. What I usually do in my one-on-one sessions is teach one idiom at a time, and then have the student answer different speaking questions using that idiom. This way, you learn to incorporate the idiom into your speech and use it naturally. It also becomes part of your active vocabulary, so it's easier for you to use it on test day. My suggestion is that you learn 1 or 2 idioms a day, depending on how close you are to your test date. Then go to a list of IELTS speaking questions and answer the questions using the idiom you've chosen. Skip the questions that can't be answered using the idiom, and answer the ones where you think the idiom might fit. It's a great way to practice. The second idiom is push the envelope. This idiom means to try to go beyond the usual limits or to do something in a new, innovative way. If someone invents a new technology that no one has seen before, they're pushing the envelope by doing something beyond the normal limits. The idiom push the envelope comes from aviation, where it means testing the limits of an airplane. In aviation, the envelope refers to the limits of an aircraft's performance, such as speed and altitude. Pilots and engineers use these limits to ensure safety. The phrase push the envelope became popular in the mid-20th century, especially during test flights and space missions. Test pilots would push the envelope by going beyond these limits to find new capabilities or problems. Describe a time when you tried something new. I decided to push the envelope by taking a cooking class in a cuisine I'd never tried before. It was challenging, but incredibly rewarding. Idiom number 3 is bite the bullet. It means to face a difficult or unpleasant situation with courage. Imagine yourself doing something hard that you don't want to do, but you know you have to do it. For example, going to the dentist. If you don't like going to the dentist, but you go anyway because it's necessary, you're biting the bullet. The idiom bite the bullet comes from historical military medicine. In the past, soldiers undergoing surgery without anesthesia would bite down on a bullet to endure the pain and not damage their teeth. Describe a difficult decision you once had to make. I had to bite the bullet and choose between 2 equally attractive job offers. In the end, I chose the one that was more in line with my long-term career goals. The next idiom on our list is hit the ground running. To hit the ground running means to start something quickly and effectively, right from the start. A good example is a chef starting a new restaurant. From day one, he or she quickly sets up the kitchen, creates a menu, and serves customers efficiently. This means that he or she gets everything running smoothly from the start, So they're hitting the ground running. For example, if the question is, describe a time when you started something new, you can say, when I started my new job, I had to hit the ground running because of a tight deadline, but it helped me learn quickly and adapt to the new environment. The fifth idiom is on the same page. On the same page means that people agree or understand something in the same way. This idiom can be used to describe a group of people where each member understands the plan and agrees on what to do next. We can say they're on the same page. The idiom on the same page comes from the idea of reading a book or a document. Imagine you're reading a book with your friend and you're both looking at the same page. This means you're both seeing the same words and information. Describe a time when you had to work with others. In a group project at university, it was important that we were all on the same page to ensure that our work was coherent and well organized. Idiom number 6 is a labor of love. It means doing something because you enjoy or care about it, not for money or reward. If you work hard on a project because you love doing it, even if it's hard or it doesn't pay, that's a labor of love. It can also be called a labor of love if you spend a lot of time gardening, simply because you love plants. Describe a project or a task that you enjoyed working on. Restoring my grandmother's old garden was a labor of love. It took a lot of effort, but seeing it come back to life was incredibly rewarding. The next idiom is in the thick of it. The idiom in the thick of it comes from the idea of being in the middle of something busy, challenging, or even dangerous, like being surrounded by a lot of activity. Imagine you're in a crowded place, right in the middle of the action. It means you're in the thick of it. Describe a challenging situation you were involved in. There was a fight in a bar and I found myself right in the thick of it. Out of the blue is the 8th idiom. The idiom out of the blue comes from an older phrase, a bolt out of the blue. This original phrase describes a bolt of lightning that suddenly comes out of a clear blue sky, which is very unexpected and surprising. So when we say that something happened out of the blue, we mean that it happened suddenly and without warning. You can think of it as a surprise you didn't see coming, like an unexpected phone call from an old friend. You can say, he called me out of the blue. Describe a time when something unexpected happened to you. A few months ago, out of the blue, I received an email from an old friend I hadn't heard from in years. It was a complete surprise and brought back many fond memories. Idiom number 9 is at the end of the day. The idiom at the end of the day comes from the idea of summarizing or concluding everything after a long day. Imagine a busy day at work or school. At the end of the day, you look back and think about what was really important. So when we say at the end of the day, we mean that when everything is considered, or after everything has happened, this is the main, usually positive result. For example, if you're discussing different ways to do a project, and then you say, at the end of the day, what's important is that we get it done. You're emphasizing the most important thing, getting the project done. Describe a time when you had to prioritize your tasks. During my senior year, I had to juggle multiple assignments and prepare for exams at the same time. I made a detailed plan to manage my workload. At the end of the day, the most important thing was to focus on the tasks that would have the biggest impact on my grades and future plans. Finally, idiom number 10 is the best of both worlds. The best of both worlds means getting the best of two different things at the same time. What if you could live in a beautiful city with lots of job opportunities and also enjoy a quiet countryside with great nature? You'd have the best of both worlds. So when we say that someone has the best of both worlds, we mean that they're enjoying the best of two different things or situations at the same time. If you have a job that allows you to work from home and also travel, you're getting the best of both worlds. Do you prefer living in the city or in the countryside? I think both city and country life have their advantages, but I prefer a place where you can have the best of both worlds. For example, living in a suburb that offers easy access to the amenities of the city, but still has a peaceful green environment, combines the benefits of both city and country life. I'm a big reader. This collocation describes someone who reads a lot.
You know, like he's a big reader.
For example, you might say, I've always been a big reader. Or, I'm a big reader, so I always carry a book with me. Reading helps me unwind and expand my knowledge, which is invaluable in everyday life. Moving on, get lost in something means to become deeply absorbed in an activity.
Get lost in it.
For instance, I often get lost in painting. It's a passion that allows me to express myself and forget about the stresses of the day. You might also say, whenever I start cooking a new recipe, I get lost in the process and time just flies by. The third collocation is rooted in. It means based on or originating from.
Our family is rooted in the church.
You could say, my love for history is rooted in my childhood experiences visiting museums, which sparked my curiosity about different cultures. Another example could be, my passion for music is rooted in my family traditions, where playing musical instruments was always encouraged. The fourth phrase is to opt for. It means to choose or select a particular option or course of action from alternatives.
I've decided to opt for sanity.
For example, if you say, I decided to opt for the vegetarian meal, it means you chose the vegetarian meal instead of other options. Let's look at some other examples. When choosing a vacation destination, I usually opt for locations that offer both relaxation and adventure. For my higher education, I opted for a university that provides a strong support system for international students. When it comes to fitness routines, many people opt for activities they find enjoyable to stay motivated. Phrase number 5 is no or little room for. It indicates no or not much possibility or opportunity for something.
Just no room for the little guy.
You might say, in my life, there is no room for rest. I'm often juggling multiple responsibilities and deadlines. Another way to use this phrase could be, during the busy holiday season, there is little room for relaxation, as the schedule is packed with events and errands. Make a big thing out of something is the 6th phrase on the list and means to exaggerate the importance of something.
No, make a big thing out of it.
For example, some people make a big thing out of minor setbacks, but I prefer to stay focused on the bigger picture. This shows how you handle minor issues compared to bigger ones. You might also say, once I had a challenging group project at the university where we faced a lot of disagreements. Some team members made a big thing out of every minor issue, which caused a lot of tension and slowed down our progress. Instead of letting these small problems escalate, I focused on finding practical solutions and encouraged everyone to prioritize the project's overall success. This approach helped us work more efficiently and ultimately complete the project on time. The 7th phrase is scare the life out of someone. It means to scare someone very much.
You scared the life out of me.
It's a vivid way to describe a frightening experience. One of the most memorable experiences of my childhood was going camping with my family. One night, a thunderstorm suddenly hit our campsite, and I remember how the loud thunderclaps and flashes of lightning scared the life out of me. You could also say, there was a movie that really scared the life out of me. It was a horror movie with lots of unexpected jump scares and creepy music. By the way, feel free to subscribe to our channel to get more useful information about the IELTS test, and click the bell icon to be notified when the next video comes out. The next phrase is to jump to conclusions. It means to make a decision too quickly without having all the facts.
Gosh, you jump to conclusions.
It's like guessing something without knowing the whole story. For example, don't jump to conclusions about why your friend is late. There might be a good reason you don't know about. Or, if you hear only part of a conversation and think it's about you, you're jumping to conclusions. You can also say, before accusing someone, make sure you have all the details. Otherwise, you might be jumping to conclusions. You can also use this phrase when describing people. For example, my friend always jumps to conclusions without first finding out what the problem is. The 9th phrase is a bit of a letdown. It means that something didn't live up to your expectations or was disappointing.
Well, that was a bit of a letdown.
You can use this collocation to describe situations where things are not what you hoped they would be. For example, I was excited to see the new movie, but it turned out to be a bit of a letdown. The plot was predictable and the acting wasn't as engaging as I'd hoped. You could also say, the restaurant we tried last weekend was a bit of a letdown. The food was average and didn't live up to the rave reviews we'd read. It's always a gamble when it comes to. You can also shorten it and say, it's a gamble, or it's always a gamble. A gamble means taking a risk where you can either win something good or lose something valuable. It's always a gamble when it comes to means that the outcome is uncertain and can be risky, often because you cannot predict how things will turn out.
It's a gamble. I get it.
I suggest that you use this phrase to express the unpredictability of a situation. You might say, making last-minute travel plans can be exciting, but it's always a gamble when it comes to finding good deals and availability. Now that we've covered the idioms and phrases, it's time to move on to the speaking test itself. As I mentioned in the video on idioms, you don't want to stuff your answers with them. It's important to keep things natural. Instead, write down a list of idioms you've learned and keep it in front of you as you practice. Remember to use the idiom only when it fits naturally into your answer. Also, don't try to use all the idioms, just the ones that work best with your answers. The questions we'll be working on today are from Test 1 in the Cambridge IELTS Academic Book 18. Feel free to pause the video after each question to answer it yourself first, before listening to the sample answer. I find it a great way to practice. Alright, let's dive in. 1. What kinds of bills do you have to pay? I have a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to bills. I have the usual utilities, like electricity, gas, and water. Then there is internet and phone service, plus health and car insurance premiums. On top of that, I have to pay taxes and the occasional medical expense. On the other hand, I also have a few subscriptions to streaming services and magazines and other fun stuff. It's a lot to juggle, but I managed to keep it all in check. How do you usually pay your bills? In cash or by another method? I try to pay my bills electronically whenever I can. It's much more convenient and secure than paying cash. I use online banking and set up direct debits so I can manage everything from home. That way, I can keep track of due dates and eliminate the risk of forgetting to pay. It's really the best of both worlds: efficiency and security. 3. Have you ever forgotten to pay a bill? Yes, there have been times when I have forgotten to pay a bill. For example, I once missed a credit card payment, which resulted in a late fee. It was frustrating at the time, but at the end of the day, I used it as a learning experience. Now, I set up reminders and automate my payments to make sure I don't run into the same problem again. It really helps me stay on top of things. Is there anything you could do to make your bills cheaper? Absolutely. There are a few things I could do. For example, I could go through my subscriptions and cancel the ones I don't really use anymore. I could also look into bundling my internet and phone services, which could save me money and be more convenient. Another good idea is to periodically review my insurance policies to see if there are any savings to be had. These small adjustments could definitely help me reduce my overall expenses. This is the end of part 1. In this part, I've used 3 idioms from our list. Let's review what I said. 1. A mixed bag. I have a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to bills. 2. At the end of the day. It was frustrating at the time, but at the end of the day, I use it as a learning experience. 3. The best of both worlds. It's really the best of both worlds. Efficiency and security. I've also used 2 new idioms in my answers to keep track of someone or something and on top of something. We'll cover them in my next video on idioms, so feel free to click the bell icon to be notified when the next video comes out. Also, feel free to subscribe to our channel to get more useful information about the IELTS test. Let's move on to part 2. Describe some food or drink that you learned to prepare. You should say what food or drink you learned to prepare, when and where you learned to prepare this, how you learned to prepare this, and explain how you felt about learning to prepare this food or drink. On the day of the test, you'll have 1 minute to think about your answer. Let's begin. One dish I recently learned to make is homemade risotto. I picked it up about a year ago during a cooking class I took in Milan. I've always loved risotto, but never tried to make it myself. So I thought it would be a great challenge to take on while I was in Italy. The class was fantastic. We started with the basics, making a rich chicken broth and sauteing onions and garlic in butter. Then we learned how to cook arborio rice slowly, adding the broth a little at a time and stirring constantly to get that creamy texture. We also added some mushrooms and Parmesan cheese to give it extra flavor. The process was a bit tricky at first, especially with all the stirring and timing, but the chef was really helpful and made everything clear. I did a lot of practicing at home after that, tweaking the recipe to my taste and experimenting with different ingredients. For example, I decided to try adding saffron to the risotto to give it a unique flavor and vibrant color. I also experimented with different types of mushrooms, such as porcini and shiitake, to see how they change the depth of flavor of the dish. Each adjustment helped me learn more about how different ingredients interact and how to balance flavors, making the cooking process even more enjoyable. Learning how to make risotto was a great experience. It taught me the importance of patience and attention to detail in cooking. I felt a real sense of accomplishment when I finally got the texture just right, and it tasted delicious. It's now one of my go-to dishes for family dinners, and I love showing off my risotto skills to friends and family. So, we've come to the end of part 2. Now, there is something really important to keep in mind if you want to nail the speaking section, especially part 2. Using idioms is crucial, of course, but it's not the whole picture. You also need a strong command of vocabulary, which means your words should be varied and precise. To do this, it's helpful to learn thematic vocabulary. Thematic vocabulary is just a fancy term for words and phrases that fit a particular theme. Simply put, it's the set of words you use when discussing a specific topic. For example, in my answer, I used phrases like sauté onions, balanced flavors, and creamy texture. These are all examples of thematic vocabulary and are key to scoring high on the lexical resource criteria. Another important consideration is how you structure your answer. A well-structured response is essential for scoring high on the fluency and coherence criteria. This is something I cover in my IELTS course. During the course, you learn common thematic vocabulary in an engaging way, discover 3 effective speaking strategies, and learn what the assessment criteria really mean. Understanding the assessment criteria is particularly important because you need to know what the examiner is looking for. If you opt for the Pro package, you'll get a one-on-one consultation where I'll assess your speaking and writing skills. You can find out more about the course by clicking the link down below. Let's move on to the next part. Part 3. What kinds of things can children learn to cook? There is a variety of simple dishes that kids can start with, and they're both fun and educational. For instance, they can begin with basic foods like scrambled eggs, sandwiches, and pasta. These dishes introduce them to important cooking techniques like chopping, mixing, and timing. Scrambled eggs are a great beginner's dish because they teach kids about controlling heat and the need to stir consistently. Making sandwiches lets them play around with different ingredients and learn about balancing flavors. Now, cooking pasta helps them grasp boiling and seasoning, which are key to understanding cooking times and adjustments. As they get more confident, kids can also try baking simple things like cookies or muffins. Baking is especially useful because it requires precise measurements and shows how ingredients interact. Overall, I think that cooking helps build their confidence and gives kids practical life skills. Do you think it's important for children to learn to cook? Absolutely. I think cooking is a basic life skill that goes beyond just making meals. It teaches children about nutrition and healthy eating, which is crucial for their well-being. Plus, learning to cook helps them become more independent and responsible because they can prepare their own food and understand what goes into their meals. Cooking can also be a fun and creative activity that builds problem-solving and planning skills. When experienced with your family, it's a great way to bond, communicate, and work together. Teaching children to cook also gives them practical skills that will serve them well throughout their lives. Do you think young people should learn to cook at home or at school? I think both home and school are very important when it comes to teaching young people how to cook. Learning at home is great because it's hands-on and practical. Kids get to practice cooking with their family on a regular basis, which is not just about making food, but also about learning family recipes and understanding the cultural significance of different dishes. This makes cooking a personal and meaningful experience. On the other hand, cooking classes at school offer a more structured approach. Students can learn some basic cooking skills and and safety tips in a systematic way, schools also introduce them to a wider range of cuisines and cooking methods that they may not be exposed to at home. So a mix of the two is probably the best way to go. Home cooking gives kids practical, everyday skills and a personal touch, while school classes provide a solid foundation and a broader view of cooking. Combining the two gives young people a well-rounded culinary education. How enjoyable do you think it would be to work as a professional chef? Being a professional chef can be incredibly rewarding, but it's also very demanding. The best part is definitely the creativity. There is a lot of satisfaction in coming up with new dishes, seeing customers enjoy your food, and constantly pushing the envelope with your culinary skills. For many chefs, the excitement of experimenting with ingredients and creating unique dishes is a huge bonus. On the other hand, the job can be tough. The hours are often long, with evenings and weekends being fairly standard. The kitchen environment is fast-paced and can be stressful, especially during busy periods. But for those who really love cooking and thrive in a high-energy environment, the role can be very fulfilling and a lot of fun. What skills does a person need to be a great chef? I think you need a mix of technical skills and personal qualities. First of all, strong culinary skills are a must. You need to know cooking techniques, understand flavor profiles, and be able to present dishes well. You'll need to be precise with your ingredients and creative in how you put dishes together. Time management and organizational skills are also essential. Chefs are often required to juggle several tasks at once and must be able to remain calm under pressure. Good communication skills are also important because you'll need to work well with your team and keep everything running smoothly. A big part of being a great chef is also having a passion for learning. The culinary world is constantly changing, with new trends and techniques emerging all the time. Being adaptable and having a strong work ethic are key, because it's a demanding job that requires dedication. In essence, being a chef is a labor of love, one that pushes you to constantly evolve and improve your craft. How much influence do celebrity or TV chefs have on what ordinary people cook? That's a good question. I think celebrity chefs and TV chefs help shape what we cook at home. Their shows, cookbooks, and social media accounts are everywhere, and they often introduce us to new recipes and ingredients. For example, think about how avocado toast became a huge trend. It wasn't really on the radar until it suddenly appeared, thanks to chefs showing it off on TV and Instagram. Suddenly, everyone wanted to try making it. Trends like keto or vegan diets also gained popularity because of celebrity endorsements and cookbooks. I think that when a famous chef promotes a new dish or diet, it often piques people's curiosity and gets them experimenting in their own kitchens. So while they may introduce us to some exciting new recipes, our everyday cooking choices are guided by what we enjoy and what fits our lifestyle. Well, that's the end of part 3. In this part, I've used the following idioms from our list. 1. To push the envelope. There is a lot of satisfaction in coming up with new dishes, seeing customers enjoy your food, and constantly pushing the envelope with your culinary skills. 2. A labor of love. In essence, being a chef is a labor of love, one that pushes you to constantly evolve and improve your craft. I also use 2 new idioms: pique someone's curiosity and on the radar. As you can see, using idioms effectively in your IELTS speaking answers can enhance your answers and help you demonstrate your language skills. Remember, it's all about striking the right balance, using idioms naturally and appropriately without overloading your answers. The key is to integrate them smoothly so that they add value to your answer rather than detract from it. That's the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Please remember that although idioms are a great way to make your speech more vivid and expressive, you should only use them when they're relevant. Your primary goal is to sound natural, so try to expose yourself to as much quality English as possible when you prepare. If you want more tips and practice materials, be sure to subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon to make sure you don't miss the next video. And as always, remember, that scoring high on the IELTS test is not an impossible feat. You can do it. See you all soon!